Alright mates, how's it going? In today's video, we're starting a new series, Illidan by William King. I'm going to skip the prelude though, and just jump straight into chapter 1. So let's go! Outland. Shadowmoon Valley, to be precise. That's where we're starting. To anyone that was hoping that this was going to be some kind of Illidan biography, soz mate. Anyway, the Blood Elf forces of Prince Kel'Thas Sunstrider were currently in the process of assaulting the Black Temple, whilst demonic siege engines on the walls of the temple were raining down death on them and stuff. But despite their losses, the Blood Elves continued to push forward. They were going to take this fortress from Magtheridon, the Lord of Outland, whether he liked it or not. Illidan himself paused for a moment to have a little look-see at the temple. To a complete noob, the defences of this place might have appeared absolutely impenetrable, but to Illidan, with his more experienced eyes, he could see that these defences were actually a bit shit. The demons didn't have enough sentries to cover the length of the walls, and their warding spells were already starting to unravel. Even the outer gates were stained with rust. Plus, Illidan knew something the demons didn't. He and his companions had already spent the day sealing the portals around Outland. Portals that could have been used to bring in demonic reinforcements, so Magtheridon and his peeps were very much on their own. This will be a glorious battle, Master. His forces may outnumber ours, but we're prepared to fight to the end. Illidan kinda hoped that wouldn't be necessary. Not because he gave a shit about the Blood Elves, he just still had need of them. At least until he'd secured himself against the vengeance of the Demon Lord Kil'jaeden. Anyway, the Deceiver hadn't exactly been pleased that Illidan had failed to destroy the Frozen Throne, even if he had managed to fracture the Lich King's icy prison in his attempt. Illidan then realised that Kel'Thas was staring at him, probably waiting for a response considering he'd just said his men were prepared to die for him and stuff.
I am pleased by your people's zeal, young Kael. Their courage alone may be enough to...
Lord Illidan, new arrivals come to greet you. Lady Vash slithered into view, obviously not that bothered that she just interrupted two people having a conversation. And behind her, Illidan could see a whole bunch of big ugly monsters approaching as well. Broken, corrupted and devolved former members of the Draenei race. And their leader, Akama, then stepped forward. Me and my people have fought the orcs and their demon masters for generations. Now, we will end this curse forever. We are yours to command, Lord Illidan.
You've arrived just in time. Those machines on the walls must be silenced, and the gate must be open.
Akama nodded and gestured to his peeps, and then they bloody vanished. Turned damn near invisible, they did. The stealthy buggers then swarmed forward and clambered up the walls of the temple, and a moment later, the sound of combat erupted from inside, the huge gates of the Black Temple swung open, and explosions in the near distance sounded, signifying that the generators powering the demonic war machines had been destroyed. Illidan glanced at Akama, who looked really pleased with himself. He'd obviously been waiting for this day for a while.
Your people shall have their vengeance, Akama. Vash, Kael, give the final order to strike.
And so they did, and the main bulk of the Naga and Blood Elf army advanced through the gates. Within the Black Temple, there were probably 10 fell orcs for every one of Illidan's troops, but that didn't seem to matter. Illidan's forces swept in and cleaved through the disorganised enemy with ease. The courtyard was cleared within a matter of minutes, leaving the way to the temple's inner citadel and Magtheridon's chambers wide open.
The Temple of Karabor will belong to my people once again. It will be returned to your people, in good time.
The Temple of Karabor had been one of the most sacred sites of the Draenei, before corruption had turned it into this bloody eyesore, and Illidan could sense just how much it meant to the broken. But he didn't care at all. His purpose far outweighed their desires. Ain't nobody got time for scruples and sentimentality. But he still had every intention of giving the temple back to them once he had achieved his goals.
When we overcome the Pit Lord, we will gain the support of most of his fellow lieutenants. They follow the strongest, and we will have shown that their faith in Magtheridon was misplaced.
Cut off the head and the body falls. Will you slay Magtheridon, Lord?
We shall do much worse than that.
The doorway to the throne room slid open, and it bloody stank. The Pit Lord himself was about 5 times bigger than any Blood Elf, and he was flanked by 2 massive Doom Guard, each nearly as tall as he was.
Who the bloody hell are you? Are you an agent of the Legion? Have you been sent here to test me? I've come to replace you. Outland and all of its denizens will bow to me.
As the Pit Lord moved forward, the earth beneath him shook, because he was heavy and stuff. His 2 demonic bodyguards then advanced, and Illidan sprang into action, launching his 2 warglaives through the air. Within seconds, one of the demons lost his arms, whilst the other's head fell off, so they weren't going to be fighting anyone anytime soon. Illidan then lunged forward, slicing tendons in both of Magtheridon's front legs, before leaping onto the beast's tail. He then ran up his spine and drove both blades into the demon's thick neck. But it wasn't over yet. The plan was not to kill the Pit Lord, so Illidan quickly raised his hands and started to chant a spell of binding.
Oh, you're strong. For a mortal. I am no mortal. Anything that can be killed is mortal.
Illidan then gestured towards Lady Vash to join in with the binding spell, so she nodded and did that. The spell still needed a little bit more oomph though, so Illidan glanced over at Kale. However, that junky bastard was currently licking his lips over all the unleashed magic in the air.
Kel'Thas!
Kale then snapped out of his stupor and joined in as well, and the spell then locked into place. The Pit Lord was successfully bound. Finally, the first stage of Illidan's long-dreamed plan was complete.
May I ask when I may begin, sir? Begin what?
We must purify the temple, prepare it to be returned to holiness.
There will be time for that afterward.
Afterward?
After my business is concluded. There is much to do before Outland is freed.
But the temple is free now.
Nowhere is free, whilst the Burning Legion reaches out for conquest.
Right. Great. May I withdraw and share the great news with my people?
You may. The temple will be returned to the Broken, Akama. Just not today.
Yeah, sure. Whatevs. Akama had a feeling this was going to happen. It would have been pretty dumb of him to trust an agreement made with someone called the Betrayer. If the Hunter of Demons wasn't going to hold up his end of the bargain, there were others who would. So off he went to find them. A short time later, Illidan was stood up on the roof of the temple with Kel'Thas and Vash, and although he'd initially felt pretty good about his victory, he'd since grown restless. He didn't feel as triumphant as he'd expected to. Instead, he felt a growing sense of dread, and that feeling was only being made worse by the fact the sky had gone red and there was a weird storm brewing.
Lady Vash, what is this? Where did this storm come from? Keep your head down, fool. Something terrible is near.
Suddenly, a gigantic glowing figure formed in the air, and it didn't take long for Illidan to figure out who it was.
Foolish little mongrel. Thought to hide from me in this forsaken backwater, did you?
It was impossible to do anything but look into Kil'jaeden's eyes, and by doing so, a link was established between Illidan and the Deceiver. Illidan could feel Kil'jaeden's cruel mind inspect his own, but he knew this day would come, which is why he planned for it. All he needed to do was make the Deceiver think he was successfully invading Illidan's innermost thoughts and secrets. So he braced himself against Kil'jaeden's will, only to allow the outer walls of his mind's defense to collapse. He then put up a second layer of protection, only to slowly let that crumble away as well, all to make Kil'jaeden think he was just too strong. And then he sneakily cast a spell that made all his secrets disappear, which makes everything else seem a bit pointless, but okay. Kil'jaeden's colossal intrusive presence rummaged around in Illidan's mind palace for a bit, and after he was satisfied there were no juicy hidden secrets, he changed his focus and started scanning Illidan's recent memories instead. Firstly, back on Azeroth, some bloke called Arthas had pointed Illidan in the direction of the Skull of Gul'dan, and after defeating a dreadlord called Tichondrius, he'd consumed the artifact's power, only for Tyrande and Malfurion to see his transformation and view him as nothing but a monster. Next, his attempt to destroy the Frozen Throne. Illidan channeled Dalaran's magical energies through the Eye of Sargeras to create devastating earthquakes that would tear Icecrown apart, only for his goddamn twat of a brother to intervene before Illidan could finish the job. Although he did manage to fracture the Lich King's prison in the process, which might come in handy. Then, Illidan's flight to Outland, being captured by Maiev, but then rescued by Kel'Thas and Vash. And after that, today's events. Their victory over Magtheridon. It didn't matter that Kil'jaeden witnessed that memory. The Demon Lord didn't care who ruled Outland, as long as they ruled it in the Legion's name. Anywho, once Kil'jaeden was satisfied, the link was broken and he withdrew from Illidan's mind. And Illidan knew he needed to choose his next words very carefully.
Kil'jaeden, I'm attempting to bolster my forces here, but the Lich King will be destroyed, I promise you. Is that so? Well, these servants you've chosen do show some promise. I will give you one last chance, Illidan. Destroy the Frozen Throne, or I'll f*** you up, you dickhead.
And then he was gone. Illidan let out a big old sigh of relief and turned to his companions.
Perhaps hiding here was not the best idea. Will you follow me into the cold heart of death itself?
The Naga are yours to command, Lord Illidan. The Blood Elves are yours as well, Master.
There are things I must do before we go, because we are not prepared.
And we're leaving it there! Okay, so, the first few chapters are going to kind of revisit some of the events during the Battle for the Frozen Throne, from a different perspective, but the vast bulk of the book is going to be the story leading up to the Burning Crusade and the Black Temple raid. And there's 31 chapters, so this might take a while. As usual, link in the description if you're interested in buying this book. Also, there's links to my Discord server and my Patreon page too. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that bollocks. And all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!